Hi, this is Stavris Owner and Instructor at DrumChops Drum School. Welcoming you back to Lesson 3, Part 2.
Great. So once you have that in place, now you're ready to start putting your tension on. Tensioning a drum head is, again, the same whether it's a bass drum, a tom-tom, or a snare drum. What we use is something called a tension rod. It's got a threaded screw on the one end that's going to go into the lug. And then at the top it's got like a hex type top that you would need a drum key to put on and tighten. And you usually will find either a flat plastic or metal washer. I don't know if you can see that, but it's these are plastic that go on the tension rod, and they go on the tension rod first. And then what you would do is take the tension rod and simply put it through the hole in the rim and screw it down into the lug. Now you can see what I'm doing here is just what I call finger tightening. I'm just going to take this and put them in and tighten them with my fingers just so that it's at the very top of the rim. So it's not putting really any tension on it right now. We're just sort of going to even it out. We need a good starting point. And then we complete this same procedure on all the tension rods into all the lugs. Again, it's really important to just finger tighten, because you want to be able to start at the same tension on all of the lugs. As we move through and talk about tuning and getting the right sound out of this drum, most of that is going to involve around getting an even tension on all of the lugs. Of course, the more lugs you have, the harder that's going to be. With a 10-lug snare, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than if we only had 8 lugs, because there are obviously 2 more lugs that we need to consider. And it might be a little difficult to tell whether or not you have the same tension on all of the lugs. You're going to have a keen ear to be able to tell whether or not you have one lug a little bit tighter, and so the tone of that right over that lug might be a little bit higher in pitch because you have a little bit more tension on that one lug. What that's going to end up doing overall is give the drum a weird kind of a ring, because while a portion of the head is going to want to resonate because it's so tight, the rest of the head is going to be a little bit looser and it may not want to resonate as much. And that generally gives the drum kind of a strange overtone. So if you get to a point where something just doesn't sound right and you're getting some kind of strange overtones or rings, what you may need to do is just simply take your drum key and loosen up all the lugs again. Start from this same position, which is the finger tightening, and then very carefully put tension on all of the lugs in a very uniform fashion as you move across. So this is the last one that I need to put in and finger tighten, and then we need to get our drum key and start with our tensioning. Now at this point you can go ahead and take the snares off. Obviously if you're working with a tom-tom you don't need to do this, but if we're working with a snare drum at this point, I like to take the snares off so that I can gradually get an idea of what's going on. Now I'm just going around now and I'm making sure everything is finger tight, just the same, because as you do put some in, things will change a little bit. Okay, and then we take our drum key. Now the method I'm going to use to tighten in this kind of format is going to be called a star method. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply do one complete revolution on each lug. Actually, we're doing 2 complete revolutions on each lug, I'm sorry. And then you move one to the right and then directly across. One to the right, then directly across. Again, one to the right, and then directly across. One to the right, then directly across. One to the right, and then directly across. Now we're back to where we started. I put another one revolution on this one. I'm going to continue that again using the star method, one revolution on each one, moving directly across, one to the right, directly across, one to the right, directly across, one to the right, and then we're back where we started. At this point, what we can do is we can take a stick and simply tap on the drum head in the various locations of over each lug. And what we should find, because we've done our tensioning in an equal way across every one, that the drum head gives the same pitch at each tensioning point. So it sounds like we do. Notice we have the tom-tom sound because the snare drum, the snares have been released. If I bring the snare drum up, if I bring the snare throw-off up, then the snares would be pressed against the bottom of the head, and we should have a snare sound. Now notice the key here is that we did have equal tension across all of the things, across all of the tension rods, and so we have a nice solid tone to the drum, a nice ring, and at this point I would say the drum is fully tuned. Of course, tuning is preference, so if this is a little too high pitched or not high pitched enough, you can either loosen as you go around, or you can tighten more as you go around to get the drum higher in pitch. Loosening obviously will make the drum lower in pitch. That's more important in tom-toms, as you're tuning your toms from your small toms to your high toms, your small toms to your larger toms. You would want to go higher in pitch to lower in pitch, obviously. Every drum will have a certain sweet spot where the ring is true, and we'll see that with some different toms as we go along in the different segments and look to tune different drums. But for this snare drum, I think we're pretty much all set.